one thing I wanted to ask you about, like, so when we started the podcast, no one really knew who you were on the internet beyond like tech Twitter to an extent. And so you
Right.
wouldn't have got that many like Instagram DMs of random people like or emails from random people like asking for stuff or saying that you're amazing, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Now, and over time, as the podcast has become more popular, you would have gotten more of those. So how has your
Yeah.
attitude towards them changed over time?
What are you trying to get me to say here?
I'm really curious. I wanna understand the diminishing returns from your perspective.
Okay, yeah. Look, so there's definitely diminishing returns. I think the first few times it's like, whoa, this is so cool. Like random person on the internet, has like listened to hours of the podcast and they really like it and this is really cool. I think the thing to understand is that I don't like to be praised. And a lot of these outreaches, they're sort of reaching out to sort of share that they like the podcast. And then there's typically some kind of praise involved.
Yep.
And I'm not really into that. I don't feel much when I read some messages that I get, but sometimes I do feel something. Like when we read reviews, for example, with a lot of the reviews, right? Like I don't really feel anything, but occasionally someone will touch on something that I don't know think is really really cool or really good, or that I want people to touch on, and then I'll feel something. Let me go through some reviews. Okay, so the praise that I do like is when I'm called funny, and we've talked about this before. I think it's a different category of praise. It's a group
Yeah.
project, and so when I get messages saying that I'm funny, then that feels good. I think messages that say things like, the podcast has made me think more about like X, Y, and Z. I think I feel something with those. I think messages that say things like, me and my friends like listen to the podcast and we like talk about it and stuff. I think I feel something from those. So I feel something when I am convinced that there has been some kind of impact, and B, it's the kind of impact that I personally value. Now, when people say something like, well, if there's a review or an email saying something like, "Oh, this is so insightful. I learned so much," that goes in one ear out the other. I'm not at all convinced that they're getting anything from it. And if there's messages around like, yeah, I'm like, I think I'm it's making me more productive or something, I just don't buy it. So I think if the message is aligned with what I personally think is valuable, and if it's like convincing.
So if the message says that this podcast has helped me connect better with my fellow man, you'd be like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm all over that. If the
Yeah.
message is this podcast has made me more productive, you'd be like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah, if like someone engages with like the kids stuff or engages with you know, one of my what I would consider to be original theories on life, it, it's always really nice when someone specifically has engaged with that, because I feel like if I get a message that they've engaged deeply with like one of these things that I really care about, then I think there's much less chance of it being a generic structural relationship of like I'm just like some slightly older person on the internet who happens to just record himself, and therefore people
Yeah.
happen to listen to me and take me seriously for some reason. I think yeah, I think that is probably the bulk of the diminishing returns, where for a lot of the messages, I feel like if I were replaced with someone else who's roughly my age or something, then this person would probably lap up whatever they're saying as well. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't care about that. Maybe I'm being like really egotistical here. That I need to be some kind of special snowflake that's
Yeah.
providing truly differentiated and unique value that no one else can provide. Maybe that's not a good thing.
I don't know. I think maybe you're over indexing on the age thing as well. Like, I think for a lot of people, they actually don't think or care about how old someone is. Like, people who don't know, I suspect that the fact that you are approximately 25 years old is fairly irrelevant to 95% of the audience. And I suspect that 90% of the audience won't have even clocked that about what your age is before
Okay, yeah,
we
I
mention it
think
on
it's
this
more.
episode.
Yeah, I think it's more of a bracket thing. Like anyone from like 18 to 30, or oh yeah, anyone up to the age of 30 might plausibly see someone who's my demographic as being a potential authority on things, and the fact that you know I'm on a podcast makes them by default sort of think take me seriously on things.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think it's also like there's a danger to not like people have agency. Like if the stuff you're saying doesn't vibe with them, they'll leave a 1-star review saying, I don't know, two rich boys talking or whatever, and then not listen to the podcast again. Whereas the people who are listening are not listening because they think you and I are authorities on anything. They listen because presumably they get some kind of value out of the stuff that we talk about. I think maybe what's going on here is that if it's a conversation where you and I are just having a chat and shooting the proverbial shit, if someone then says, oh, that was insightful, I learned a lot from that conversation, maybe it feels like, oh, I mean, maybe there's a sense of, well, we were just kind of shooting the shit. Like, there must be something else going on for you to think that was worthwhile, rather than the fact that it was actually worthwhile.
No, I don't think that. I think I don't have any qualms about shooting the shit episodes. I think a lot of good stuff comes out from them. I think there's a lot of insight in the shooting the shit. So I don't find it. I'm not skeptical when someone claims to find value in the shooting the shit episodes. Actually, here's another thing that I think contributes to diminishing returns. I think a big part of why people. Okay, let me speak for myself first. I'm a fan of the All In podcast with Chamath and Jason and David Sachs and David Friedberg, right? Big fan of the podcast. Everyone loves this podcast. It's just so good, right? Now, I listen to every episode, and I don't think I've learned anything that I could recall from these podcast episodes, right? I know why I listen to the episodes. I listen to the episodes purely for the vibes. It's 4 guys who are really close mates, bantering around. Yeah, sure, they're talking about tech, they're talking about politics, they're talking about current affairs. I don't care what they're talking about. It's 4 dudes who are just vibing and bantering around, and they know each other really well, and it's good vibes, and it's like, it's nice to just listen in on that. In the same way that, I think I've said this before about David Dobrik's vlogs. It's just vibes in a can, it's canned vibes where you just watch this thing for 4 minutes and you just like soak in the vibes. And I suspect that is a big part of why most people like this podcast. And I think it is a easy trap to fall into, to think that, oh yeah, I'm learning something from this podcast or whatever. Oh, there's so many insights, whatever. When actually it's just like raw entertainment.
Yeah.
And mate, raw entertainment is fine. Like I think like, as I've said before, I think comedy is the only worthwhile thing to do in life. But yeah, if I get a message of like, man, it's just like great vibes, I just listen for the vibes, this is raw entertainment, I'll be like, hell yeah, I love it. I'd feel good about that. But I think, yeah, I'm just skeptical when I feel like that's most of what's going on, and most people are not aware of that, and they are maybe deceiving themselves or whatever, that there is something else going on.
So it's like me playing World of Warcraft for the vibes and pretending it's for my hand-eye coordination.
Right, yeah, sure. And look, I'm worried about. Look, I'll be honest. I'm worried about how I'm coming across here. Look, yeah, it probably comes across that like Taimur was just basically saying like a big fuck you to the audience, and he's like, stripping them of their agency and assuming their intentions, and assuming that they don't know whatever. I'm okay. As I've mentioned on previous episodes about other topics, I am speaking at a very low resolution here. I'm speaking in terms of like large structural effects that I think go on. I'm not speaking about any particular individual saying that this is what's going on. I'm just saying these are large structural effects. Similar to, I mean, yeah, we talked about this on the episode with Joey, right? Similar to, saying that, Ali, you should wear a black t-shirt when you go on a date. You're talking about some, a very like low resolution structural thing that you think is a contributing factor to something. You're not saying that like the person I went on a date with last week, only likes me because of my black t-shirt. So, yeah, just want to do some hedging there.
Nice. Yeah, that's good hedging. Worth adding that in.